It was a Monday morning. I was leaning against the metal workbench, wrenches and oil-stained rags scattered across it, when the garage door creaked open. I looked up, and there she was, standing in the middle of my shop. My neighbor, brown hair pulled back loose, a plain white tank top, that same pink duffel bag on her shoulder, the one I'd watched her carry out to her car every morning for a year and a half. She pulled a folded application out of it and set it on the counter. "I'd like to apply for the position," she said. I looked at the paper, then at her, and the dumbest sentence of my life came out before I could stop it. "I need a wife, not an employee." She didn't laugh. "Then, it's your lucky day," she said. "I'm only applying for the job. My name is Caleb Merritt. I'm 34 years old, and I own Merritt's Auto, a shop sitting on the corner of Glenwood and Timber Creek, in Raleigh, North Carolina. My grandfather opened that shop back in 1971, back when the whole stretch of Glenwood was still mostly farmland and gas stations. My father took it over after him, ran it through good years and lean ones, and eventually it landed on me. Not because I didn't have other options growing up, because the first time I stood in that garage at 7 years old, watching my grandfather's hands move under the hood of some old sedan, I remember thinking it was the most honest place I had ever set foot in. Motor oil, steel, the smell of rubber baking under fluorescent light. None of it lies to you. A car either runs or it doesn't. There's a kind of peace in that. I run the place now with 3 mechanics and 1 person up front handling the phones, the scheduling, the invoices, and every small fire that comes with running a business like this. For 15 years, that person was Patty Okafor. She was 58 years old, and she knew every customer who walked through that door by name, by vehicle, by exactly how they liked their coffee while they waited on an oil change. She retired last month to stay home and take care of her husband after his stroke. I was glad for him, that he had her by his side. I was quietly, selfishly, sorry for myself, because losing Patty felt like losing a piece of the shop's memory. I taped a hiring notice to the front door the same week, and posted the opening on a local job app, the same one half the businesses on our street use to find help. 3 people reached out that first week. One of them didn't know the first thing about our scheduling software, and admitted as much halfway through the interview. One asked about hours, said she'd think it over, and then simply disappeared. No callback, no message. The third candidate was my neighbor. As for my marriage, since it comes up eventually in a story like this, Diane and I got married when I was 29. We divorced 2 years later, when I was 31. No kids between us, which made the legal side of things simple in a way I've heard most divorces never are. No real property worth fighting over either, because there wasn't much built up yet in those years. Diane wanted a different kind of life than the one I could offer her. Not more money, exactly, though that was part of it. Something else, something I could never quite put a name to, but I knew deep down I didn't have it in me to give her, no matter how hard I tried those last couple of years. She was good at knowing what she wanted. I respect that about her now, even if it took me longer than it should have to get there. After the divorce, I simplified my life down to something manageable. I live alone in a small house on Larkin Street, 2 bedrooms, an old oak tree standing guard over the front yard, a little garage out back, where I still tinker on weekends when I want quiet that isn't the shop's kind of quiet. No dog, because I'm gone too many hours of the day to be fair to one. No houseplants, because I know myself well enough to know exactly how that story ends. I'm up by 5:30 most mornings, coffee brewed strong, out the door before the sun's fully cleared the tree line, driving to the shop while the streets are still mostly empty. The house to my right belongs to a landlord I've never met, older than mine, with a low white picket fence that's been peeling for years. 18 months ago, Nora Callahan moved in. I remember the day clearly because I helped her carry a washing machine up the front steps, both of us sweating through our shirts in the July heat. She shook my hand afterward, introduced herself, straightforward. No wasted small talk, no forced warmth either. Then she carried the rest of her boxes inside and closed the door behind her. 18 months. I knew the small things about her the way any neighbor eventually learns about the person next door without ever really trying to. She was an early riser, same as me. I'd catch her kitchen light click on some mornings around 5. A small yellow square in the dark through my own kitchen window. She read on her porch most Sunday mornings, a mug beside her, legs pulled up under her, and every single morning, without exception that I ever noticed, she left her house carrying that same pink duffel bag over one shoulder. I used to wonder, in the idle way you wonder about things that don't really concern you, what she kept in there. A laptop, a book, maybe 2. I never asked. We were neighbors in the way a city this size allows 2 people to be, friendly from a comfortable distance, and in a place big enough that everyone can pretend to be busy. That distance felt like enough for both of us. Neither of us pushed past it. I didn't think about Nora in any other way. Not back then. She was the neighbor. I was the guy next door who owned the auto shop down on Glenwood. There are boundaries that never need to be drawn out loud between 2 grown adults living side by side. They just exist, quietly, the way a fence exists without either side needing to point at it. And then, that Monday morning, she walked into my shop with that same pink duffel bag on her shoulder, and inside it, a job application with my shop's name printed at the top. And I said the dumbest thing I have ever said in my life. I hired Nora because, on paper, her resume beat the other 3 candidates without any real contest. 6 years of bookkeeping and accounting experience, most of it freelance, some of it for small businesses not unlike mine. She already knew ServiceTitan, the scheduling software I'd just switched over to that spring, the same one Patty never got the chance to learn before she left. During the interview, sitting across from me at my own desk, Nora asked, "How many bays do you run simultaneously, and do your techs input labor time themselves, or does someone do it for them?" I sat up a little straighter without meaning to. Nobody had asked me a question that specific in 5 years, not even Patty in her last year. 3 bays, I told her. The techs do it themselves. Badly, most days. She nodded once and wrote something down in a small notebook she'd pulled out from the pink duffel bag resting against her chair leg. I noticed that. The notebook, its cover worn soft at the corners. The black pen clicked twice before she used it. The tidy, slanted handwriting.
Number 5.
I didn't say anything about any of it. She started the following Monday. That first week, I kept things deliberately professional, the way any employer keeps things with someone new, polite, clear, nothing personal creeping in. She never needed anything explained to her twice. Not the invoicing system, not the parts ordering, not the quirks of our ancient phone line. She sat down that first morning, opened the system, learned it fast, and by the end of Tuesday she was already moving through the day's schedule faster than Patty had managed a full year into the job. I didn't tell her that. I figured it would sound strange coming from her new boss on only her second day. The pink duffel bag was always right there, set beside the leg of her desk, same corner, same angle against the wall, every single morning without fail. I couldn't tell you exactly when I started using it as a kind of quiet confirmation. No bag yet, she hadn't come in. Bag there, the day had officially, properly begun. By the end of her second week, she walked into my office holding a printed sheet. Single page, numbers laid out clean in columns, the kind of formatting that told me she'd built it in something more careful than a basic spreadsheet template. A breakdown comparing our service revenue against actual labor costs, category by category, month by month going back 6 months. She pointed to one line near the bottom. Your oil change volume is high, but the margin's thin. You're pricing labor at 28 minutes flat, but your techs are actually averaging 34. 6 minutes doesn't sound like much until you multiply it out across 200 tickets a month. I looked down at the sheet, then back up at her. How long did this take you to put together? She shrugged one shoulder, like it hadn't cost her anything. Couple of evenings. A couple of evenings. Her own time, unpaid. Nobody had asked her to do it, and she said it the same way most people would mention they'd caught up on laundry. I didn't know how to respond to that, except to say, "I'll fix the pricing." She nodded once, satisfied, and went back to her desk like the whole exchange had been nothing at all, already pulling up the next thing on her screen. In her third week, Gerald Tom came in, 70 years old, driving the same Buick he'd been bringing in for as long as I could remember. In for a checkup he scheduled like clockwork every 8 weeks, the kind of customer who treated the shop like a standing appointment with an old friend. He sat in the waiting area and struck up a conversation with Nora while she processed his paperwork. I overheard it through the thin wall separating the office from the bay, half listening while I finished torquing a lug nut. "You new here?" he asked her. She said yes, this was her third week. "Caleb runs a good shop," Gerald told her, unprompted. The way he told most people whether they asked or not. His grandfather used to work on my father's Chevy, way back, before any of us had gray hair. Then he added, in that easy, unhurried way older men have of saying something they actually mean, "Good kid. Quiet, but good." Nora went quiet for a beat, and then said, "Yeah, I know." 2 words. But the way she said them, low and certain, almost private, I could tell she wasn't just being polite to a customer. She was agreeing with something she had already known, long before she ever walked through my door with that application in hand. I tried not to read too much into it at the time, but it stayed with me the rest of the day, and longer than that, if I'm honest. In her 5th week, it rained hard, right as we were closing up. The kind of sudden downpour that turns the parking lot into a shallow river within minutes, drumming so loud against the metal roof of the shop that we had to raise our voices just to be heard over it. Her car was still sitting in the service bay. I'd been replacing a tire, and the part had come in late that afternoon, so I hadn't finished the job. I told her I'd give her a ride home, since I was headed that direction anyway. She didn't say no, but she didn't thank me the way people do when they're caught off guard by an unexpected kindness either. She just said, "I'll grab my bag," like the whole arrangement was the most obvious thing in the world, like we'd done this exact routine 100 times before. She tucked her little notebook back into the pink duffel, zipped it shut, and followed me out through the rain to my truck, both of us soaked through by the time we reached it. On the drive, we didn't talk much. Rain hit the windshield in steady, uneven sheets, the wipers barely keeping pace. Then she asked, without turning to look at me, "Do you like what you do?" I kept both hands on the wheel, and actually thought about the question instead of throwing back something easy. "Most days," I told her. She nodded slowly. "Good, that matters." That was it. No follow-up question, no small talk to fill the silence after. I couldn't explain, then or now, why that short exchange sat heavier in my chest than any long conversation I'd had with anyone in months. By her 6th week, I'd noticed something else, something small. I knew what book she was reading, not because she'd told me, but because one slow afternoon she'd pulled it out of the pink duffel bag to read while the waiting room sat empty, and the spine happened to face toward me across the counter. Educated, by Tara Westover. I'd read that same book myself the year before, alone in my kitchen over 3 or 4 nights, finishing it far too late and going to work exhausted the next morning without regretting it. I didn't say anything about it, but the next morning, pouring my coffee before heading out, I caught myself reaching for a second mug for no reason I could name, standing there with it in my hand for a second longer than made any sense before catching myself and putting it back on the shelf. I drank my coffee alone that morning, same as every other morning. But that Wednesday, a customer ended up waiting longer than we'd promised him, and I offered to grab coffee from the cart parked down the street for everyone in the waiting room. I asked Nora, almost as an afterthought, what she wanted. "Green tea, if they have it." "No sugar," she said, not looking up from her screen. I bought it along with everything else and set it down on her desk without a word. She looked up, looked at the cup, then looked at me with an expression that wasn't quite surprise, more like someone quietly confirming something they'd already half suspected for a while now. "Thank you." 2 words, but in a different voice than the one she used for work, softer around the edges. I walked back into the bay afterward. Marcus, my lead mechanic, looked at me with the particular expression of a man who knows more than he's willing to say out loud. I didn't ask him what he was thinking. I already had a decent guess. The pink duffel bag stayed right there beside her desk every single morning after that. Same spot, same angle. And I kept noticing it, every day, without exception, even though I never once admitted to myself, not out loud, that I was paying that kind of attention to a bag. Diane showed up on a Wednesday morning in our 7th week. I heard the click of her heels against the concrete floor before I even looked up from the engine I was working on. Some sounds your body remembers before your brain has time to catch up and process them properly. She walked into the shop like she still knew every corner of the place, because she had, back in the early years, when I'd bring her by on slow afternoons, and she'd actually sit and listen while I talked about whatever engine I had my hands in that day. Same hair, cut the same way it had been for years. Same smile, the one it took me a long time to understand, never quite reached her eyes. Not really, not even when we were happy. There was something about the morning light hitting the front windows just then, too sharp, glaring off the hood of a customer's sedan, and for a second, the whole shop felt too bright, too exposed, like nothing in it could stay hidden. "Caleb." She said my name like she was setting something back down on a table she still, somewhere, believed belonged to her. "Diane." I wiped my hands on a rag and straightened up. "Something I can help you with?" She said her new car needed a look. Small talk stretched out across maybe 3 minutes total. Nothing urgent in the way she said it. In those 3 minutes, her eyes swept slowly across the shop, passed over the front counter, and landed on Nora typing at her desk without looking up. Diane's gaze stopped there, held a beat longer than it needed to. I saw it happen, clear as anything. "New hire?" Her voice came out gentle, almost too gentle, the kind of gentle I'd learned the hard way, over years, to be careful of. "Front office," I said. "Patty retired last month. Your neighbor, isn't she?" Diane smiled, easy and light. I remember seeing her around, on Larkin Street. I didn't ask how she knew that, or why she'd bothered remembering a face from a street she hadn't lived on in 3 years. I booked her appointment, tried to wrap the conversation up quickly. Diane left, but not before glancing back at me once more from the doorway. The kind of look that says clearly, without a single word, "I'm not finished here." She came back that Friday. Not about the car this time. She stood at the front counter until I'd finished helping a customer, then pulled me aside, out by the side door, the same spot we used to stand and talk when we were still together, back when that spot meant something different entirely. "You need to know something," Diane started, her voice dropping into the register she used whenever she wanted to sound serious, sound like she was doing me a favor instead of settling some old score. "That girl saw your posting on the local app and applied right after. Doesn't that strike you as at all strange? She's a freelance bookkeeper, Caleb. She's got clients. She doesn't need a front office job at an auto shop." She crossed her arms, studying my face the way she used to when she was waiting to see if a point had landed. "You've always been like this. You don't see things until somebody spells it out for you in plain English." She paused, just long enough for what came next to land with real weight behind it. "She doesn't need the job, Caleb. She needs you." She said it slowly, clearly, like she was reading out a verdict she'd already reached days ago, back before she'd even walked in the door that morning. "And you're letting it happen right in front of you without even seeing it." I didn't answer right away. I stood there thinking, and not really about Diane at all, but about the sliver of truth buried somewhere inside what she'd just said. Nora did still have freelance clients on the books. I knew that much because some afternoons she'd open her personal laptop during her lunch hour and work quietly through it, headphones in, barely looking up. She didn't need the front office job out of any real financial desperation, not the kind that keeps a person up at night. So why had she applied in the first place? Out of every job posting in this city, out of every business on Glenwood that might have needed help, I kept turning the question over. The way you turn over a wrench, looking for the exact size you need. And every angle I tried led back to the same uncomfortable place. I already had an answer half formed in my head before I'd even finished asking myself the question properly. I just didn't want it to turn out to be the right one. Because if it was, everything got a great deal more complicated than I was prepared for that morning. "Thanks," I said, mostly just to end it. "I hear you." Diane left. She looked satisfied on her way out, more satisfied than the situation should have warranted. That week, something in me shifted. Not on purpose, not with any real decision behind it, but it shifted all the same. I stopped offering to grab tea when I went for coffee. I answered Nora's work questions shorter than usual, more clipped, more strictly professional than I'd been in weeks. I started closing my office door more than I used to, telling myself it was because of paperwork, when really it was because I didn't trust my own face not to give something away. Not cold enough to cause a scene or draw a comment. Just different, in the small ways that add up over a handful of days without anyone naming them out loud. And Nora struck me as the kind of person who never needed much data to read a room accurately. She didn't change how she worked, not even slightly. She never once asked me what was wrong, never pushed, never tried to close the distance I was quietly putting between us without explanation. She just kept doing exactly what she'd been hired to do. On time, clean, no excuses offered or needed, and every single morning, that pink duffel bag still sat beside the leg of her desk, in the exact same spot it always had, unbothered by whatever was happening on my side of the room. I stopped looking at it directly after a while, or at least I tried to. At the end of our 8th week, I stayed late after closing to go through some service records that had gotten behind. The shop was quiet in the particular way it only gets after hours. The compressor finally off, just the hum of the fluorescent light over my desk and the occasional car passing outside on Glenwood. There was a small note sitting on my desk when I sat down, her handwriting, tidy as ever, describing a minor glitch she'd found in the scheduling software and exactly how she'd fixed it. At the bottom, 3 words, "Fixed." No action needed. No explanation beyond that. No request for credit or acknowledgement of any kind. She'd found the problem on her own time, solved it, reported it cleanly, and gone home like it was nothing worth mentioning further. I sat there, looking at that note for longer than I probably should have, turning it over once or twice in my hand. She was still doing the work, still fixing whatever needed fixing, quietly and without complaint, even while I was pulling away from her for reasons she didn't know and hadn't asked about, and that I hadn't found the nerve to say out loud yet. On the Monday morning of our 9th week, Nora came in right on time, same as she always did. Pink duffel bag over her shoulder, laptop bag in her other hand. She sat down, powered on her computer, and then looked straight at me across the room. Not the kind of look that starts a small, easy conversation. The kind of look from someone who had waited long enough and had finally decided she wasn't going to wait any longer. "Caleb," I set my coffee down on the counter. "Nora, you've been different for almost 2 weeks now," she said, and it didn't come out like an accusation, just an observation she'd finally decided to put into words after carrying it silently for a while. "I don't know why, and I don't think I have any real right to demand an answer from you. But I need to say something before I say anything else." I stayed quiet and let her talk, my hands still around the warm cup. "I saw your hiring notice on the app," she said, holding my eyes steady. "And yes, that was part of why I applied. I recognized the shop's name the second I saw it. I knew it was yours before I ever typed a word into that application, and I applied anyway." She paused for a beat, like she wanted the next part to land clean. "I'm not going to apologize for that. I have real qualifications, real experience, and I've done this job well since the day I started. None of that changes just because of the reason I first walked through your door. So what's the real reason? I heard my own voice ask it, and I recognized it wasn't the voice of someone angry. It was the voice of someone who genuinely wanted to know. Finally, after weeks of not asking. Nora was quiet for a moment, looking down at the desk between us. Then she lifted her eyes back up to mine. You've been leaving the newspaper on my porch every Sunday morning for 6 months, without ever once saying a word about it to me. Her voice stayed even the whole way through, not shaky, just slower than her usual pace. You don't know that I know it's you. But I do. I saw you do it, just once, early one morning, but that was enough for me to know for certain. She looked down at her own hands for a second. I didn't know what to do with that information once I had it, so I just kept walking out onto my porch every Sunday morning and picking the paper up like nothing had changed. I stood there without moving, without saying anything back yet. I didn't come here to complicate your life, she went on. Steady. I came because I wanted to be closer to you, and because I genuinely, actually need more stable income right now. Both of those things are true at the same time. I'm not using one of them to hide the other one from you. Then, she stood up from her chair. She pulled a resignation letter out from the pink duffel bag, already written out in full, giving the standard 2 weeks' notice. She set it down flat on my desk between us. Calm, no drama attached to any part of it. I'll finish out the 2 weeks if you need me to stay that long. Or, you can let me go today, right now, whichever works better for the shop. She gathered up her laptop, her jacket off the back of the chair, but she left the pink duffel bag behind, right where it always sat, at the foot of her desk in that same familiar spot. I saw her do it, saw the choice in it. She saw me see it happen. Neither one of us said a single word about it. The shop door closed behind her a moment later. I stood there in the suddenly empty front office. Marcus and the other 2 techs were still back in the bay, the air compressor humming its usual low, steady rhythm through the wall. I looked at the pink duffel bag sitting there on the floor. 18 months, I'd watched her carry that same bag out to her car every single morning, rain or shine. 6 weeks, I'd watched it sit beside her desk every single day without fail. And now, it was sitting there without her attached to it. And the shop felt quieter than it had any real business feeling on an ordinary Monday. I bent down and picked it up off the floor. Lighter than I'd expected it to be. Something shifted softly inside. A notebook. A pen rolling against the fabric. I held it for a second, not doing anything with it yet, just standing there in the quiet. Then I set it down on her chair instead of the floor, not at the foot of the desk anymore, but up on the seat itself, where a person actually sits. I walked toward the side door. Marcus, I'm stepping out for a bit. I drove home to Larkin Street with the radio off the whole way. I knocked on Nora's door with her pink duffel bag still in my hand. She opened it, looked at me, then looked down at the bag. No surprise crossed her face at all. No smile either. Not yet. Just a look, the kind that waits patiently to see what you're actually going to say before it decides how to respond. You left this, I said. I know. Silence stretched between us for a moment. Wind moved through the old oak tree standing between our 2 houses, leaves rustling softly overhead in the quiet afternoon air. I'm sorry about the last 2 weeks, I said, meaning it fully. I heard something, and I chose to spiral quietly instead of just asking you straight to your face. What did they tell you? She didn't need me to actually answer that question out loud. Her voice already told me she knew exactly who they was, without me saying the name. Some of it was true, I admitted. But it got used the wrong way, twisted into something it wasn't. Nora looked at me for a long moment, weighing something behind her eyes. Then she opened the door wider, stepping back to let me through. You want to come in for tea? I stepped inside. I didn't rush to put a name on any of it. Neither did Nora. We let it be exactly what it was, day by day, without forcing a label onto something that was still finding its own shape. We started with small things. The kind of small things two neighbors who'd already known each other for 18 months could ease into without it ever feeling like some grand, staged event. She'd come over on Friday nights to half-watch a baseball game where neither of us actually cared which team won, the television more background noise than entertainment. I'd walk over to her place Sunday mornings because she made scrambled eggs with something folded into them I could never quite identify, and the result was somehow, consistently, better than anything I ever managed on my own stove. I finally asked her about it one morning. She said cream cheese, like it was obvious. I told her that didn't sound remotely logical for scrambled eggs of all things. She just set the plate down in front of me without bothering to argue the point any further, letting the eggs speak for themselves. I never hired Nora back at the shop, not once, not even part-time. We both understood that without ever having to discuss it out loud between us. I posted the opening again a few weeks later. This time with one added line tucked into the description. Familiarity with Service Titan preferred. I ended up hiring Carla, 41 years old, who'd spent years doing service coordination at a Ford dealership across town. She turned out to be good at the job, reliable, easy to work with. Not as good as Nora had been. Not in the specific way Nora had caught a real bookkeeping error in her second week, without anyone even asking her to look for one. But I never said that comparison out loud to anyone, not even to myself, for very long. I kept the pricing analysis Nora had built for me tucked away in my desk drawer. Not because I ever needed to look at it again for the numbers themselves, because I simply didn't want to throw it away. Diane called once. About 2 weeks after Nora had left the shop for good, a familiar number lighting up my screen on a slow afternoon. I looked at it for 3 full seconds, then turned the phone face down on the counter and went back to what I was doing. There was nothing left waiting on that end of the line anymore, and somewhere, underneath it all, I think she already knew that too. She never called a second time after that. 6 months later, Raleigh does autumn slow. Not the fire red kind of color change you see further north in places like New England, but a pale gold, a warm brown, like somebody had quietly turned the temperature down a single notch and forgotten to switch off the porch light behind them. The old oak tree standing between our 2 houses started dropping leaves steadily through October, covering both yards in equal measure. I took a broom out most Sunday mornings that month, a cup of coffee balanced in one hand. That particular morning, cool air, a light breeze moving through the bare branches overhead, Nora stepped out onto her own porch with the pink duffel bag over her shoulder out of pure habit, watching me work through the leaves scattered across my yard. "You want help?" she called over. I told her I didn't need it. "I know," she said, already crossing toward the fence. "I'm asking because I wanted to come outside anyway, not because you actually need the extra hands." She crossed over the low picket fence between our properties, still peeling in places, though I kept saying every week that I'd finally get around to repainting it, and kept not following through. She sat down on my front steps, set the same worn pink bag down beside her feet, and watched me finish sweeping the last of the leaves into a loose pile near the curb. I went back inside and grabbed the cup of green tea I'd already brewed for her, without needing to ask anymore. Something I bought now every single time I bought my own coffee. A habit so ordinary by that point, it no longer needed announcing to anyone, least of all to her. I came back out and sat down beside her on the steps. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked, looking out toward the quiet street rather than at me. "Regret what?" "The divorce." Diane. I actually thought about the question properly, instead of reaching for some rehearsed, easy answer I'd used before with other people. I regret that it took me as long as it did to realize she and I weren't right for each other in the first place. I don't regret how it ended, though. Not for a second. I looked over at her. "Are you asking because you actually want to know, or because something about it worries you?" Nora laughed softly, the particular laugh she saved for whenever I got a little too direct for her taste. "Because I want to know." "That's all. Then that's your answer," I told her. We sat there together until the tea had gone completely cold in both our hands. I finished sweeping the yard. She held the second broom the whole time and didn't actually help much with the leaves at all, slowing down constantly to pick up individual ones and study them for a moment before dropping them into the bag at her feet. I never said anything about that particular habit of hers. I liked it. I never told her outright that I liked it. That evening, sitting together on my porch as the light faded, I put my hand over hers for the first time. No particular reason behind the timing, nothing special about that exact moment beyond the two of us sitting there, the night cool and quiet around us, and it simply felt more right than any decision I'd had to make in years of my life. She didn't pull her hand away from mine. We didn't say anything else for a while after that. We didn't need to say a single word. That winter, I ordered something online without telling her first. A new bag, pink like the old one, made from better material than the worn, fraying one she'd carried for as long as I'd known her. I left it on her doorstep one quiet morning before work. No note attached to it at all. But by then, she didn't need a note to know exactly who it had come from. She brought the new bag over to my place that same evening and set it on my kitchen table. "You didn't need to do this," she said, though she wasn't quite frowning. "I know," I said. "The old one's coming apart at the seam, has been for a while now. I can patch it myself." "I know you can. That's not really the point." She looked at me for a long moment, something softening behind her eyes. Then she left the new bag sitting there on my kitchen table and didn't carry it home with her that night. The next morning, though, she carried it out her own front door instead of the old one. The old bag, worn thin at the seams, she kept it tucked away in a closet rather than throwing it out entirely. I saw it there again months later, that spring, when I helped her move her things out of the rental house and into mine for good. I never asked her why she'd held on to it instead of letting it go. I already knew the answer without needing to ask. That same spring, I finally repainted the picket fence I'd been putting off for years. Nora picked out the color herself, a brighter white than the last coat, one that wouldn't start peeling again for years if it was done properly. I asked her, half joking, why she cared so much about a fence that technically belonged to my side of the property line. She looked at me like the question itself was a little bit funny. "Because I'm going to be looking at it every single day from now on," she said simply. I want it to be nice to look at. I understood exactly what she meant by that, without her needing to explain any further. I'm telling you all of this not because any of it was particularly dramatic. It really wasn't, if I'm honest with you. Nobody cried out in public. Nobody slammed a hand down on a table. Nobody stood up and made some grand, sweeping declaration in front of an audience. I'm telling you because I keep coming back to that one joke I made on the first morning. I need a wife, not an employee. I said it on reflex, the kind of throwaway line a single guy makes about his own quiet life so nobody notices the part of it that's actually running empty. Nora heard it land. She didn't laugh. She just said, "Then it's your lucky day. I'm only applying for the job." She was right, in the end. She only applied for the job, and she did it well, from her first week to her last. But she carried that pink duffel bag into my shop every morning for 6 straight weeks, and she left it behind on the exact morning she finally walked out. Not because she forgot it. I understand that now. She was handing me something to carry back to her myself, watching to see whether I actually would. I did, later than I should have. But I did. Some people walk into your life carrying the most reasonable excuse in the world. A real resume, real skills, a real, practical need behind it all. And underneath every piece of that truth, they're carrying something else too. Something they're not ready to name yet. Something they just leave sitting there quietly, at the foot of the desk, morning after morning, in the same spot every time. The question is whether you notice it in time, before someone else picks it up and uses it against you. I needed both of those things before I understood any of it. The truth that got twisted, and the woman who left her bag behind on purpose. I'm not proud of how long it took me, but I'm glad, every day since, that I knocked on her door that afternoon. If you've ever had someone walk into your own life carrying a reason that sounded perfectly good on the surface, only to realize much later there was a deeper one hiding underneath it the whole time, tell me about it down in the comments below. And here's the one thing I actually want to know from you. Do you think Nora leaving that bag behind that morning was an accident? Or do you think she did it entirely on purpose? Hit like if you wanted Caleb to knock on that door the way he finally did. Subscribe so you don't miss the next story like this one. And drop just one word down in the comments below, accident or on purpose.